What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Welcome to the CFF All Access College Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Eric Froton with Josh Chevalier. As always, we're going to dive into the waiver wire, but first, we want to talk about Dynasty College Fantasy Football, and specifically the type of team you have, whether it's contending, whether it's not. It's easy at this point in the season if you're 0-7 heading into week 8 to pair off whatever assets you have. But what if you have one of those teams that is floating in the middle of contention? Like, do I want to be aggressive or should I pull back and try to acquire some assets for next season? So I happen to have one of those teams. Josh happens to have one of those teams. You know, we'd obviously love to hear your opinions in the comments section for those of you who are listening live, and sort of let us know if you have anything to share. Certainly, feel free to post over there on X. You have anything for us to take a look at, we're happy to do so. But in order to expedite this process, Josh, why don't you get into your team that you'd like to discuss and let's hit it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll I'll tell a little bit about this league. It's a 14-team league. 6 teams make the playoffs. We play two teams per week. So there is a level of you can get back in this if you're out of it at some point. 6-point passing TDs, you'd be proud of us, Froton, on that one. Full PPR.
As God intended.
Of course. Your starting spots are 2 QBs, 3 running backs, 4 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 3 flex. And then one defense special teams because I can't get them to get rid of it yet.
Wow. The 3 and 4 wide receiver, 4 wide receivers, 3 running backs, aggressive. And then another 4 swings on top of that.
Yeah.
Heavy, deep roster, very deep.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of guys out here.
Yep. And then our rosters are like 70 deep. So total,
wow,
including starters. So
dude, that's as deep as it gets. Yeah. I'm intrigued. Let's
yeah. And then we have our, after week 8, after this week, Tuesday, October 22nd is the trade deadline. So you have some time, right, to figure out whether you're in contention or not. But my team's one of those that we've kind of talked about is like, I'll show you the standings here real quick.
Yeah.
For everybody to see. First. If you're on podcast, sorry, you can't see this, but I'll try to explain as best as possible. So we have 14 teams in this league. And I am number 9. Again, 6 make the playoffs. So although I'm number 9,
funny, my team's number 9 too. We're gonna look at it's fun. That number 9 spot. Here we are. Right. No,
it's tough because I'm like, yeah, I'm currently. Let's go to.
Oh yeah, you got a ton of points. You're.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably, you're almost second, right? Or,
yeah.
Right. Oh, excuse me. I apologize.
Yeah.
4th in points out of 14 teams, so you're doing great. So there's optimism there. You just look at that points against as well. One of the leaders, I want to say probably 4th in that too.
Yep. You got
which
it.
always helps. But 6 and 8.
6 and 8. So that puts me right at 9, right? And it looks like, look, I play kind of a little more context. I have 8 games left in the season. I play 5 of the worst teams in the league who are also selling off, right? So those are teams that are going to be easy victories over the last part of the season. But I also play the number 1 team in the league this next week and the 8th team. And then I believe I play the 5th team as well. So, I could go 5 and 3 over the stretch, could go 6 and 2, but I'm right on that fringe. And I don't really know, honestly, what to do. If you look at my roster, I'll put it back there right now so everybody can see it. My QBs, I had Byron Brown as my starter. And tough start.
Byron Brown as your starter.
Tough start to the year, right? And then
the toughest.
He's done basically for the year, I think. At least on crutches right now when I need him. So I am
top 5 overall selection, Byron Brown. Yep.
Yeah. So you can see, I got some really good skill position players on here. You can't see him right now because he's on a bye this week, but I got a Marion Hampton, right? I mean, he's a guy that's been lighting it up this year. Jordan James, Toby Walker, Ja'Cory Brooks, Jaden Higgins, Xavier Restrepo, Jack Beck, and then Dean Connors, right? So basically 8 guys that are scoring over 20 points. But then you have my quarterbacks that right now, Ja'Cory Brown is my second best one on my roster.
Your
Everybody else has
QBs
gotten hurt.
are hilarious. Your
Yes.
QBs are essentially my waiver wire discussion. So I'm going to lay off of them. The two of my waiver wire guys are your QBs. Can we get to the can we look at your bench so I can see what the rest of your QB room looks like?
Yeah, I mean it's terrible, bro.
Tommy the football wizard, to paraphrase the Who, of course.
Yeah. So we got Connor Basilic, Braylon Braxton.
You hit the wire hard. Braylon Braxton. He's like a prototype wire QB from this year.
Yeah.
Bagnano.
Yeah. I basically
why not? Oh my God, you're throwing it all out there. Stoney Earl.
And I'm essentially trying not to give up my first and second round picks and going in order to acquire QBs. And so I've kind of put myself in this hole. I definitely had a competing team. I probably should have just done it, but I've kind of done that over cycles over the year while I keep giving up a first round pick for a QB. And I just try to stop doing that this year. And you can see it's not paying off for me. So the question is do I go for basically a QB or two and try to basically be perfect the rest of the season, or do I try to accumulate some early round draft picks with these, tradable assets that I have? And I don't know what to do. I was telling you before we got on, I don't usually try to trade assets. I try to just make it work as much as possible. And so, but I'm here. And so I need an objective third party here to help me out. So that's why you're here.
Okay, let's go down the RB room too. Let me just get a quick scan. Ontario Brown, I'm sorry to see that. That doesn't help your cause any.
Yeah.
Does it?
Nope.
You got the 2 Appy guys. I don't know what to do with any of them. And they're down. Okay, wide receivers. Jamal Banks, I kicked that around. Mario Craver with a big game last week. We like that. Jacoby George is one of my guys. But, dude, you have every single Miami wide receiver except for Brown.
Yep.
You're starting Horton.
Yep.
Jimmy Horn dinged up. That doesn't help you.
Nope.
Tretch, maybe if Pauling doesn't play, you could kick that around. Jordan Moore. No Jordan Moore? You're not going to start him?
I could. He's Malik Murphy.
I know.
Playing against some of these ACC competition is just so bad. Might start him this week. We'll see.
Because you got Horton in there, and I mean I understand.
Yeah.
But they're playing Louisville. You want to play 2? I mean, Restrepo and Horton against Louisville. They have a pretty good defense, but I mean Miami just seems to manufacture shootouts everywhere they go. Okay.
Yeah. Malachi just put up 129 too against Louisville, so I'm outside wide receiver. We'll see.
So let me ask you this. Okay, let's go up to the starters. How many teams make the playoffs?
6.
Okay, so you're on the outside there. And there's, if we can go to the standings, because the lineup's good. Like I feel pretty good about it, and you have a good bench, and you have a million guys, so you have you have enough options to pick from.
Yep.
It's the 6 and 8 that's really tugging at me, because you're fine in the points category. Can you make up? Because you don't have to get up to 8 and 6. You got to get up to 9 and 5.
Yep.
But you're going to play the 5 team, and there's 3 of them, and you're at 6 and 8. So the beauty of this conversation, one is, well, the obvious answer is don't do a damn thing this week because there's no trade deadline until next week, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you don't do anything. You go and you do the best you can, and you see how the chips fall, especially because you're playing the first team. And if you go out there and you pull a 2-0 and you're 8 and 8, well, then it depends on what cost of acquisition is. What is this league like in terms of how tight they are trading? Because I have my home league that we make sure that the trade deadline is extremely early because there's no waiver wire. And we don't want to make it so that you can just fire sale late in the season. So we do it after week 3. And you have to make a call before week 4. And it kind of makes you don't want to give up that quick, So
Yep.
unless you're 0-3 and you're in the bottom of the points, it's hard to pry somebody off of a team. Are people amenable to trading when it comes around to trade deadline time? And it's week 8, and there's going to be several teams that are not going to be competitive. We already see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are ripe for it, and potentially you or Shane's team will be in that mix too.
Yep.
Then potentially you can, instead of talking first round pick, talking 5th, 6th rounder, maybe. You peel off something for a need, which is obviously QB.
Yep.
You peel a little something off for a senior QB that hopefully you can go and stick in and not have to Ja'Cory Brown or Tommy the football wizard yourself every week. So 1, you don't do anything this week. 2, I think you need a 2-0, buddy.
Yeah.
I think you need a 2-0 this week. 7-9,
I know.
teams ahead of you, because the 17 will probably at least split. Then you're still 2 games down, and then you go until what, week 12 or week 11?
Yep. Let me ask you this. Okay, so there is a chance I can get. I love doing this on shows because it's like this makes it infinitely harder for us to get any kind of good deals on players. But Diego Pavia plays Ball State this week.
I'm glad we talked about Diego Pavia. Yeah.
What kind of draft capital would you give up for Diego Pavia?
We don't have to make it a theoretical, because in my segment, we're going to talk about a couple trades I've already made where I'm in that state of flux, but they're lower investment sort of deals. Yep. I was able to acquire them for a price that's probably going to be pretty good.
Yep.
But it's a case where a lot of people have already sold. It's a 20-team league as opposed to a 14-team. Yep. So 20 teams, you have more people selling and more, it gets to a thing where there's 20 teams, the 6 playoff spots, that the bottom 10 are out and they're happy. Well, they're ready to deal. They're ready to talk. And you get a bunch of wheeling dealers down at the bottom and it's on. Yeah. So it depends on how this 14-team league goes. And I guess I'd like to have that perspective on you. Like, what do you think a Diego Pavia goes for in your league? Because what it would be in a 20-team league is not what it would be in my 14-team leagues, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I'm thinking, again, I don't do this often, so it's tough for me to gauge value, but I would think a 5th or 6th rounder for Diego Pavia. We have 15 rounds essentially in our drafts. Is what I would think, for a guy that's going to give you 25 a game. He got 1 season left with them.
And it also is important. Remember, you guys have ultra big rosters.
Yep.
Even though it's a 14-team league, in terms of player pool availability, it's going to be similar to probably that 20-team league that we're talking about that I'm in. So,
yep.
Player pool wise, it doesn't affect the availability, because 14 owners are 14 owners. There's just aren't as many guys to trade that are going to be amenable to it.
Yeah.
But in terms of player pool, my gosh, that a 5th rounder, I think that's pretty darn good.
Yep.
I think
I like that.
Very reasonable on all fronts. And frankly, depending on the stage of where you're at in the season and how long you can trade, if you're at the wire and somebody just has him hanging around and it's one of like the last guys, you could probably package somebody else in there too. See what other flotsam is hanging around their roster that's a senior. So I would look to say, I wouldn't just offer the 5th. I would say Pavia and toss me a skill player. Or a lot of times tight ends are completely undervalued, especially if they're older. You can get a tight end. You get somebody to toss in an old man tight end, like a
for sure
type. You can do that. So
I like that.
I would say 5th for Pavia, and don't settle for just Pavia. Try to get another little piece, a defense, whatever, something else that's another piece that can help you. That's an expiring contract, an expiring asset. because we know when guys are going to go. Unlike the NFL, we know when they're going to go in college.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when the COVID years are done.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get to your team, there's a quick comment here about they want to see what this Iron City team looks like, and I do want you to see.
Let's
this
go. Yeah. Well,
like
I don't see
they're.
why you'd be embarrassed about it. Let's rock and roll,
Oh,
right?
not at all. I mean, we're all playing for second. Check. I mean, this dude Chad, you've probably played with him in leagues. Iron City. He's Iron City Renegades everywhere.
I think he is in the league that I'm in. We'll see.
Yeah, he's a pretty big dynasty player. But check
Haj
this
Malik.
squad out, bro.
What a pickup. What a pickup, Haj
Yeah.
Malik.
So he got him for a first rounder this
Look
last
at
week.
the group of 5. Is it?
Yep.
Does he have a single? He's got Caleb Johnson, but other than that, it's literally the entire group of 5. Holy
now,
crap.
this looks like a great starting lineup, doesn't it? Wow. This isn't even hit it. Like,
yeah,
look,
now he's got
look
the waiver wire. Yeah, I know he's going to show me his buys. Yeah,
Ashton
Genty,
Darius Taylor.
Whoa, he's got a serious bench too. Oh man,
yeah.
Isaiah Bond's hurt, but he's out there.
Yeah, we're all playing for second in this league against this dude. So
we'll see, dude. You don't know what happens as the season goes on.
That's true.
I've had some wagons that just you hit the late season, they get a bad stretch. It's like, oh, there you go. You got one bad week. Oh, goodbye. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. But I thought that was because they wanted to see it. I thought that was fun because that's fun. Roster's absolutely stacked.
It's American high.
Yeah. So it's fun. All right. Let's see. You want to go to your league? Shift out and stop sharing my screen
Let's go to
here.
my league. Yeah, stop sharing. It's my turn to share screen. And there it is. Standings. Look at the technological expertise on display here, guys. I mean, can you believe it? I can barely believe it. All right, so there we are. Let's see if Iron City is around here. There we go. We're going all the way down. Rusted Musket out. Iron City. No, I don't see Iron City in here.
Maybe he's at the top. Nope. Okay.
No, that's Bainbridge. So it's Bainbridge is king of the 4th. He loves that. Number 2, Joe Bot Capozzi, one of the great college football crops handicappers, and one of my good friends from my home league over here. And this is, by the way, the league is CFB Winning Edge. That is Nick Ian Allen's league. 20 teams. We like 45, 50 player rosters, and 6 teams make the playoffs. So here I sit, like Josh, in 9th place, 8-6. I have scored 26-64. 26-86 is scored against me. That puts me, unfortunately, when it comes to the points for, at a deficit. I am, let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I am 13th, 14th in points scored. And the reason why is because this has been around for, I think, 6 years, this league. I have been a contender for that time. I went all the way 1-2 years ago, contended again last year, and winning record. And then here I am. I was like, oh, my roster is in serious trouble. Started out slow, and I actually traded. I guess we'll go down to the transactions portion here because that's going to give us a little bit of an idea of what we're working with. For myself, go to the history. And with the trades, I went and, as you can see, there's been a ton of picks traded here just in the course of this season. No joking around. So I started my trades, as you can see here. I hope you can see it where I'm highlighting.
Yeah.
Right on my cursor. Eric Froton, our boy Clint.
You got a first-round pick for Quali?
Quali Conley, I had to do it, right? But it was early,
for sure.
Right? So this is, as you can see, and again, I'm gonna definitely defend Clint here. It's week 3, as you can see here, right?
Yeah.
It's week 3, Tuesday. I come out of the gates limping. I think I'm 1-3. I'm way down there in points scored. I kind of knew my roster wasn't there. It's a 20-team league, so the margin for error. If you don't have a good team, and you're down, good luck climbing back. And you see that's the first trade of week 3. That's the first move. Yeah. You had a couple of before week 1 kind of getting, these are all just preseason trades. Like everybody's making, this is all draft pick trades. It was literally the first trade I made, first trade of the entire season. And then right afterwards, Clint goes and makes another acquisition, goes after Montrell Johnson and Antoine Wells. So he wasn't messing around here. He went and just like aggressively did that. And that's, I guess, a good example of what we're talking about, where if you go and you see that and you get the inkling, what we have deemed it in and you know I like to kind of come up with terms. What I kind of call that in our home league is a pooch. It's a pooch punt.
Yeah.
It's not a full punt. It's a pooch punt.
Yeah.
And Quali Conley for a first round pick, I will die on that hill. Here we are. You know,
and if you're competing,
me
I mean,
down.
it's something to be known about this league. Again, 20 teams. So if he's competing, right, I mean, it's almost a second round pick in a lot of your traditional leagues.
Yes.
So, you know, it's not the same value, especially if you're drafting late in those.
And especially if you see your team where, you know, Clint jumped out to a quick lead and was in good shape. And he's like, all right, well, I see a couple holes. Here come the bye weeks. I'm not messing around. I'm going to get these guys at positions. I need running backs, and I'm going to get them. And he did. He got Johnson. He got Quali, you know, and et cetera.
He went all in.
He did. He went all in. But everybody, you know what? A lot of people do.
Yep.
You know, like that's what teams are here to do. They're here to go to be aggressive. And what I kind of did, and I'll kind of make this example here, is you look at Leland and Nick, right? Nick, again, this is week 4. This is just one more week. You see him being very aggressive and saying, all right, I'm here to bring the pain. And he goes and gets Shador, goes out and gets Chandler Morris, and he gives up a couple of seconds. Pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And I can't blame Leland either. He's saying, all right, his team's in trouble, done. That's a nice quid pro quo. That's 100% makes sense on both parts.
Yeah.
But Leland had already kind of paired off a lot of his assets. And you come over here to LBA&M. You can see where he starts down here with Brooks. Like adios goes Brooks. I think there, you know, however that goes. Here's a couple of second rounders. Again, second rounders start getting paired off.
Yep.
There's a couple more. Victorious again, LBAM he hits the panic button and it's on.
Yeah.
It's on. So then I see this and I'm like, all right, well, now it's week 5, as we can see here. And I'm looking at it and going, okay, now I'm way down the trough. I'm in trouble. I think I'm like 3-5, but I'm down in points. And Bainbridge hits me up about Monin guy.
Yep.
I shop him around a little bit. I get another offer for a second. He goes, toss in Owens. I'll give you first. I say, here's your Rashad Owens, Michael. And yeah, take him. And I give up a legit stud RB1 and Monin guy to Bainbridge for a 1. So at this point, I think I'm done. Just to give you the framing, I'm assuming with my position that I'm cooked.
Yeah.
I'm accepting my fate. I've got 2 1s to go on top of mine, and you know we're off. Unfortunately, I then go on a run here in week 6 and 7, where I go on a 4-0 run. I don't know how I did it, or I think I go 5-1 in the next 3 weeks after making those trades, and just go on. Just here I am. And I'm doing it. We'll then get to the roster. I realize that I'm in trouble because the previous week, let me go to week 6. Week 6. Welcome to Ben Finley.
Yeah.
Welcome to Ben Finley against Bowling Green. Like you, Josh. A hallmark of the mid-tier, do we compete, do we not teams, is poor QB play. And yeah, I had how's Jackson Arnold for you? Yeah, so much for the Jackson Arnold Will Howard combo. Good job, Proton. Let me see. Oh, there's injuries. TJ Finley goes down. Great. Matthew Sluka. You all know about Matthew Sluka. Grayson McCall. Here we are, right? Like, all right. And I don't have the back guy. I don't have Veldkamp. Delightful. That's Capozzi's. Screw you, Capozzi. And yeah, so I'm out here just scraping by at whatever I can on the bottom of the barrel. I draft Cromenhoek, but then it's like I'm in trouble. Evan Simon was good, but then he gets hurt. Look at that room. So I realized very quickly at the 8-6 I'm sitting at, like this is an untenable situation that has to be rectified
Yeah.
fast. So last week I go and, as the teams we were talking about, Leland already made a trade, traded pretty much his best assets, as did, as we talked about, LBA&M. There's Trevor Etienne. You trade Etienne for Talon Shetron. Like,
Yeah.
this guy's in a dealing mood. Let's have a discussion. And here he is making another, like, some teams you just go and you look at the transaction wire, and this is a good lesson for everybody. If you see somebody on the transaction wire who's out there and the fire sale's beginning, it ain't going to stop. All right?
Right.
Get out there with your gas of Coleman fuel and pour a little on it.
Did you give him some budget money too? Oh no, he gave you budget money.
I got some budget money. I love Leland.
Love
He's
it.
probably in the in the thing. But
One of the best.
So I went and hit up
He's
Leland.
my Pavia trader.
Dude. Well, he was? Well,
he's the one I want to talk to. I
understand. And so we go there and I say, Riley Leonard. We've talked about Riley Leonard in prop circles. I have taken his passing under. He's been great. But for fantasy purposes, 3 straight 30-point weeks. It's a 6-point passing touchdown league, but he is not Ben Finley. So I go and grab him. Jalen White, running back, great. I need a little depth there. Caden Robinson-Appy, they're terrible on defense. They have to throw. And I toss in Mylan Graham and Shanks and an 8th. So, the youth talent exchange, I toss in like a nominal 8th rounder, but, you're doing that for Graham and Shanks. For that and the budget money. Pretty much, I think, an even exchange of assets, but I didn't have to give much of a pickup, and that's what I'm really concerned about in this sort of a rebuild, with acquiring more assets after I've already acquired a couple firsts. I don't want to be jeopardizing the top of my draft. If I want to go and hit my mid to late rounds, fine. Graham, I think he's probably 2 years away. Shanks, I like, obviously, but UAB looks to be a complete catastrophe. Yeah. So, I'm ready to get out of UAB. And then over on the other side, LBA&M was doing his thing. Has, I think, one of the Bama running backs. I pair off an 8th. He had already literally traded everything. I mean, you can see here.
Yeah.
With LBA&M. He did it weeks ago. So he already did it here with Brooks, Carson Beck, and Restrepo. That going over there. You got Josh Kelly for Bishop, Jaquindon Jackson. He got paired off, Matthew. So there's, look, Bringstool and Coleman for a second. He's already traded everybody, essentially. Yeah. And then he hasn't done much at all. There's an Etienne. And that was sort of like my, oh, wow, we've got Trevor Etienne for Talon Shetron, huh? So he's just kind of looking to get everything out of there. And that's where Pavia, Raheem Sanders, was banged up before last week, has a nice game against Alabama, sort of resurrects himself. And then Taylor Thompson, 80 yards and a touchdown this week. I think he was, or at least, 6 yards and a touch for that potent James Madison team. Give him a young running back and an 8th. So that sort of stuff that we're looking at, it's fungible. Again, the early acquisitions, going and then saying, all right, I didn't expect to be in this place, getting these pieces, and then looking from a standing standpoint of saying, I'm in 9th place, I'm 8-6, and I have to go and make a move. So that's really where we're at with my roster, where I was at there, and my particular team. Any ideas of, how I should handle it? Because there's no deadline, really. I think you can just keep going.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
So it's
I
like,
forgot that league does it.
Yeah.
I guess you can just
hold, essentially.
Yeah. And like, I think the beauty of that, and Nick really did that in that league a lot when I was in it, is you can acquire assets and then trade them off at different points, right? I think they stop it right before the playoffs, I believe. Hey, let's take a quick break, and then I want to finish this conversation after the break. Yeah, is that right? Like you can't trade during the playoffs, I believe, in that league, if I remember.
I believe that's what it is. I think we had shut that, but it's probably coming up in a week or two.
But
the problem is, I just don't want to give it up. Like I
Yeah.
don't. I'll go through the roster now that we went the full way through before we go and move on just
Yeah.
quickly. Before we go and ditch. But by acquiring Leonard and Pavia, like they're literally my two starters here.
Yeah.
Like I have to. This is what I need to be doing. Can you see it on here? Is it on the screen, or am I not showing it?
No. Trey,
Oh
can we get
well.
the?
I
I
thought I
think
was
we
sharing.
can.
There we go. My bad,
There we go.
boys. I'm sorry about
Boom.
that. That being said, as you can see here, Leonard, Pavia, they're automatic starters. Georgia Tech and Ball State at 25, 27 points a game. Pavia barely even throws the ball. But if I didn't them, I acquired Brock Glenn. Here we are. Howard's on bye, so I'm extremely vulnerable. And there's literally nobody else. Maybe Evan Simon now that he's back, but we don't even know what that is going to look like.
Right.
So
Tulsa is pretty
that
bad.
was vital. Yeah, definitely. To even have a chance, and at 8-6, I'm 2 games above 500. I had to go that direction. But here we are. Durham, hopefully, he has a little magic, a couple magical games. Pretty much have to start him. Toby Walker has been absolute. Just how am I supposed to know that he's going to go and take that job and go for 40 points last week? Armstrong, glad I didn't trade him. Raylan Sharp hasn't had the touchdowns, but has been effective. You see 14 points. Sykes. Again, a lot of those. Sykes was on the previous team on that 14-0 one. Yeah, he gets some time. Taylor Morin, Raheem Sanders, Junior Luther Vandross, and then Taylor Thompson goes and plugs right in for me at tight end. So, like, there was real holes in my roster, and you've seen it here too. Like youth with the Wisconsin backs, waiting for Highshot next year. Daniel's one of the co-starters there. I got Jam Miller, but I don't know what he's going to do against Tennessee. Like, do I start him against that run defense? I don't know.
Thomas is on the up and up.
Jet Thomas is,
Jevian.
As we talked about last week. We talked about a couple weeks before that. Jet Thomas, I have him everywhere. I went and I emptied out the clip on Jet Thomas. Thrilled. Obviously, he's going in if Ott's not there, and probably even if he is. White, yeah. So I've got some stuff to work with. Book's on bye. Coleman, unfortunately, has gone downhill after all the injuries. Trigg and Velling, good tight ends. So the point is, got a pretty good set of running backs. I'll plug a couple of them in. I'm not sure which ones, given this.
Yeah.
We don't know who's playing and who, what the situation is, who's going to be in and out. But I think it's clear needed to do exactly what you did with the quarterbacks with Leonard and Pavia, and had to go and shore that up. Whereas it's almost like there's a limited number of quarterbacks we can even really draw from on the wire. If you don't get some of the elite ones, the premium ones, then you're just sort of left plucking. Whereas we can be a little more strategic and long-term planning with the running backs and the wideouts, and sort of get some of those look-ahead guys that end up doing better in the middle and later parts of the season. Interestingly, we both have the same issues.
Yeah. That is funny as far as we've talked a little bit about dynasty roster construction. I do think one of the things with roster construction in general, I feel like I personally get so cute with it and want to hit on those like wide receivers. But it's like, man, like the players that score the most points, quarterbacks and running backs. It's like, just if you nail those and you can figure out wide receivers, it feels like you're going to have a good roster. And it's like, I've kind of been playing it thin at wide receiver in that one league, as you can see, and it's finally just coming to bite me in the butt. So it's unfortunate, but we'll see what we do. Love it.
And what we're going to do is, I would assume we're going to get some waiver wire action. Let's try to plug through here. We got very passionate about our dynasty segment here.
I know it's our favorite format. So how can we not get passionate about it? So, all right, why don't you start off with your QBs? We'll just kind of go back and forth on this, and give our guys.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you talk about Ja'Cory Brown, since you literally just put him up all on the screen. He is 7% owned. So, look, starting quarterback for UCF. I watched all his throws and pretty much all his dropbacks. He definitely had a slow start, but settled in and looked pretty good, in my opinion. Like, I was surprised. He isn't quite like a dynamic runner, but he was they protect him and give him a little extra time by using that RPO. And I was surprised by UCF. They weren't just doing the RPO with him. They were giving them like the slow mesh looks on a few of those reps where it was straight out of the Wake Forest playbook where he held. And when he pulled it back and just drilled a couple of nice layered throws over the linebackers, it's like, all right, Ja'Cory Brown looking very comfortable in this Gus Malzahn system. So he has to be respected at 7%. I kept it kind of deep waiver diving here. We're going to go to your next guy. We're going to go to Tommy Ulatowski. What I really love about Twitter, and when we put this out there, when I mentioned that we're going to have some Tommy Ulatowski talk.
Yeah.
Because I watched all of his throws, of course, because I had to. I mean, this is Tommy Ulatowski. Yeah. But we got a Tommy Two-Tone reference by one of the guys, which means I got inspired by Tommy Ulatowski, Tommy Two-Tone Ulatowski, that I gave a little rewrite to his famous one-hit wonder on just the chorus. I didn't go for the full boat. Maybe I'll do that for the Expo next year, but I'm going to go with this. You ready?
Let's go.
Tommy, you're still on waivers. I need to make you mine. Gotta make a strong wagered bid. $70, make Tommy mine. Bid $70, make Tommy mine. There it is.
This is the good stuff right here, man.
Tommy Two-Tone Ulatowski, 867-5309, the rewrite. I don't just do it in karaoke. I'll do it on the show too for the folks. That being said, watched all his throws. The first quarter was an absolute catastrophe. All the short stuff that he tried to do, he was basically like Desmond Ritter squared, spiking the ball on the ground. It was painful to watch. But I swear, he hit bless Luke Flourier. That guy is awesome. He hit Lucas Flourier on a play action deep throw, streaking down the seam, right in the hands. He threw 5 straight incompletions. He looked helpless. He threw that first deep ball. I put it right on the button. Luke Flourier drops it. And it was just like, oh my gosh, how is this going to happen?
Yeah.
Didn't phase him. 2 throws later, go right back to him. Bang. On the button. Deep throw. Touchdown. Hit it. And he proceeded to go and have his short game, not great. Pretty damn good. Like his wide receivers, even he missed a couple more deep shots. Flourier and the other wide receiver, I forget who's opposite him, number 5. Both of them are really good space creators. And coming up in Maction, we talked about it before. All these MAC teams, we don't know who they are because they're playing Power 4 teams.
Yep.
Part of the fun of Maction, it's been a yin and yang, right, of the portal. What happens is they lose their talent. But what they also lose is they lose their talent on defense. I think we come back around where last year the offenses were lagging far behind the MAC defenses in terms of talent to where they couldn't really move the ball that effectively, even in conference play. We had a lot of bad Maction games. Oh, I think we've come back around now. I think the Power 4 has pillaged those defensive players, and enough of them have been taken that now I feel like the open systems we're seeing at Kent State, at Akron, those players are becoming more viable. And I think you're going to see more of the traditional Maction of yesteryear as opposed to this slow down grind Maction of last season.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Yeah, it's looking like it's all like all those teams are back and the running backs are good, quarterbacks. Yeah. So I love that, man. And you got any other quarterbacks? Those are your top 2?
We'll just go with Ryan Brown, Purdue. My gosh, that is, as we've talked about, that has been an absolutely morose Purdue offense. It had very little to be excited about. Then lo and behold, Ryan Brown takes over for a concussed Hudson Card, and he goes buck wild. 40-point week. Runs for $117. Where was this Purdue offense? Take Illinois to the limit out there, like 49 to 50. That very well could have beaten them. I mean, all right. Well, why wouldn't you start this kid again? Like, tough break, Hudson Card. Got to respect him. 1% of him.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one a lot. Yeah, I got two, and these are kind of the ones that we've talked about here before in the show at different times, and then they just kind of get forgotten because they play either tough competition or they're on buys. And so, just a reminder, Kevin Jennings is still out there. He's only 11% owned in leagues because
Oof.
he had a buy right
Yeah.
before he had the big Louisville, or right after he had the big Louisville game. And look, this guy's really coming into his own. They wanted to run the RPO. He's that guy. He had 100 plus yards rushing against Louisville. He comes this week. He plays Stanford, which we just saw Riley Leonard and what he did to him
Yeah.
and to them. And uh, and look, he can torch Stanford through the air, which most QBs have done already. But then he can also get them on the ground as well. And so he could have a massive game this next week. And then they play Duke the following week. So I like Kevin Jennings the next couple of weeks. And then the next QB I have is just Parker Navarro. I mean, that kid in action is
Parker
averaging
Navarro, absolutely.
144 yards per game on the ground the last couple of weeks. And it's like, yeah, I just love, I mean, again, this is the Hawaii, run and gun type system. And look, his schedule is pretty easy. He faces 5 of the worst defenses against opposing QBs in the MAC down the stretch. So Parker Navarro could really do something down the stretch. I mean, any guy that's running 144 yards, and he can throw a little bit too. So, and he's 6% owned, so he's still out there for you. Feel free to pick him up on the waiver wire, and I think he'll do you well. All right, let's get into running backs here. Who you got at running back?
At running back, we're going to go over to Charlotte. JD, I think, am I correct in, was it JD
Yep,
who mentioned Hassan Wilson
yep.
last week? I believe put it out there. Guys, JD, our boy, gave you the heads up. Only 2% owned. Hassan Wilson. He went out and went buck wild last week with, I believe, a buck 20 and 2, somewhere in that ballpark. Come on now, everybody. We're telling you what to do. Still only
Yeah,
2% owned. We're trying. What do we're leading you horses to water here. Get out there and drink. 15 carries, 164 and 3. Excuse me, Hassan Wilson last week. Great
dang.
call by JD Yonke. That was legit. Like, that was a pretty damn legit call. Props,
Yep.
JD. That being said, Sam Scott, Wyoming. Let's give it up here quietly for a pretty bad Wyoming team that is. I mean, we know that they're losing a lot of games. They managed to beat arguably, one of the worst teams in FBS, Air Force. They are terrible. They beat them, but I mean, they lost to everybody else. But Sam Scott, you wouldn't know it. 16 points each of the past 3 weeks. This past week
Wow.
against San Diego State, 20 attempts, 94 yards, a touch. All right. Well, in the previous game, 19 carries, 97 yards, a touch. Like, almost exact parallel marks. 20 and 19 carries. You're getting in that 20 touch category. I don't care where you are. Even if they aren't winning games, this is still the Wyoming offense. And what they do is they run the ball. They don't really have a choice. I have
Right.
a question for you to kind of break before I go through the rest of them. What do we do with Carson Hansen? What do we do with Iowa State? Jalen Jackson. Oh, we thought it was Jalen Jackson last week. It wasn't Jalen
Right.
Jackson. Abu Sama. We thought it was Abu Sama coming into the season. Well, at least we faded his 32.5 rushing yards last week. But Carson Hansen, 3% owned, comes, and he's the guy who gets all the carries last week. What do we do with Iowa State? Do we bother picking up Carson Hansen?
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing with Carson Hansen that does give him a leg up is he's 220. I mean, he's just got size that the other two backs to me don't. I mean, Abu Sama, I guess, is maybe up to 210. Feels like an inflated number a little bit for him. And then Jalen Jackson's 180, right? And so he's going to have to be efficient with limited carries. But it doesn't feel to me. It's just a fade for now because I don't imagine Carson Hansen's going to get 20 carries a week. He was pretty hot in that West Virginia game. Like they just couldn't stop him. And but he had, I think, 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. I know he had 20 carries,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I don't know, man. I mean, you could pick him up as a preliminary, but I don't know if I would start him immediately.
You can't. You can't start him. You can't start him.
Right.
But we saw what happened down the stretch last year. Campbell found the guy that he liked. It was Sama for that stretch. We'll see how it
Yep.
goes with this one. Also has the benefit of being named Carson, maybe evoking memories of Carson Steele. Never hurts. Next, Jordan Simmons, Akron.
Yes.
Speaking of the MAC, I mean, we got to talk about the MAC. We're talking about guys who are on the wire that shouldn't be. Realize Jordan Simmons is only 2% owned.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
How is that possible? Like, it seemed like he had the lead on the job in the preseason, but I get it. Really didn't have much going on for South Carolina. 9 for 49 against Colgate, 6 for 19 against South Carolina, 4 for 3 against Ohio. But 2 weeks ago against Bowling Green, they're down 20-27. Gets 9 carries for 73. Importantly, catches all 5 targets for 32 yards. This past week, gets 13 carries, 63 yards, and a touch against Western Michigan. They're behind again, but it's a 34-24 game, which, fine, we'll take that script. Catches, again, all 6 of his passes for 97 yards. So he's caught 11 passes over the past 2 weeks for 129 yards to go with a touchdown and 136 yards rushing. He's the backfield weapon for a team that chucks. I mean, that's an extra touchdown a game in just receptions alone in PPR. At 2% ownership, entering Maction against these soft defenses and what's likely to be more shootouts than we've seen. All right. Well, I mean, you could do worse than a speculative 2% pick in these in deep leagues. I would advise a speculative pickup.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, he's a guy that I looked at this week for sure. Because he's definitely flashed, and they're going to be down in a lot of games. So, and Joe Moorhead, man, I mean, we know his past with running backs for sure.
Up tempo.
Yep. All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we come back. I'll give my running backs, and we'll move on to wide receivers. All right. This one is really a speculative pickup. It's kind of wait and see. Elijah Gilliam, right? I mean, this last week he had 20 carries for 120 yards, 2% owned. Malik Sherrod was out. I don't think Malik Sherrod is going to be out long term. But even if he's out for another week, I mean, they're giving Gilliam the bulk of the carries while Sherrod's out. And so that's an offense that will move the ball. So he's a guy that you can definitely consider. He had 24 touches actually in this last game total. So he had 4 catches as well, I think for like 12 yards or something like that. And then another guy, again, like he's showing 20% ownership, but Trey Wisner from Texas. I mean, he's definitely a guy that needs to be considered. I think he's more owned probably in Dynasty or C2C leagues than he is in redraft, I would imagine. And he's a guy that we really called this last week in DFS because he's like 4.1K. And you could just see it coming. I mean, this kid, like, if you watch Jonathan Brooks when Bijan and Roshan were carrying the tote, and you come in the fourth quarter and just have like 10 carries for like 100 yards. I mean, that's Trey Wisner. He's breaking tackles. I mean, his advanced metrics are pretty crazy, to be honest. And it just shows that, I mean, this kid's 200 pounds. When he gets up to 210, he's going to be unbelievable. But even now, I mean, I could see them riding him. He just has vision and patience that Jadon Blue doesn't have in running between the tackles at this point.
Go ahead. Interesting you should mention the patience stuff, because I watched every carry of the last 2 games for Wisner and for Blue before last week. And Blue was out there on the props markets at 63.5. He opened. He got steamed up to 81.5 rushing yards.
We had fun with that one for sure.
Oh yeah, I went hard on the other side of that. Like, and I put it on my early show, over there on Wednesday, where I was like, look, I don't see how this is going to happen. Trey Wisner is a better running back than Jadon Blue. I've seen enough. I watched enough of these guys to say, all right, I'm sorry. Jadon Blue goes and fumbles twice.
Yeah.
After the second fumble, which was midway through the third quarter, we don't see him again. Wisner has like double-digit carries the rest of the game and rips 100 yards, and it looks great doing it. And we're going to put Blue out. I was salivating for a Wisner line. Salivating for it. I was hoping they dropped like, oh, let's put out Trey Wisner at 39.5 yards.
I know.
I know. Ladder the pissed. Oh, I was gonna hammer that thing because I knew it was coming. They were too scared to put out a Wisner line. They would only give us the under on blue. They wouldn't give us Wisner. So, man, that was missed profit opportunity. We didn't say right there. But
yes,
great call. Absolutely agree on Wisner. And I picked him up. If you go and look on your rosters, Josh, you'll notice I have a lot of Trey Wisner that I picked up for this particular game. Everywhere he was available, I went out and I picked him up everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you're so good at this. And it's just like, man, this kid. Yeah, I mean, this kid is absolutely. I mean, again, you've seen it honestly from the beginning. If you just go back and watch games, I think Jaden Blue struggles, and I mean, there's these small times, right? Like Wisner's out against ULM. Jaden Blue gets 25 carries for 125 yards. It's like, you're not supposed to do that against ULM. You're not supposed to average 5 yards a carry, right? And there's things like that. And then
with your 24 carry showing,
no. And then Wisner was just, again, before that, before he got hurt, he was outperforming Jaden Blue when you look back on it.
He was.
And then that Mississippi State game just sealed the deal. So
because that game was close when those fumbles happened. Like you go and you look at the final score, it kind of belies what actually happened. Because at that time it was within 2 scores.
Oh, totally.
Very much a game in the third quarter. And it just, you could see metaphorically Sarkisian throwing his hands up. Blue opened at 60.5 this week. And it is now 50.5. It is now 50.5. We'll put it 50.5 now from 60. Yeah. And there's a reason for it. And it was an aggressive attack on that line.
Well, and
not many of these early ones, the Monday lines have moved. That one has 10 yards already.
I'll say Prize Picks took Wisner down. They hit him at 60.5.
I know.
And they took him down.
I hit him at 60.5. Absolutely.
Yep.
Of course.
So I was disappointed
with both out at even. Come on.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Georgia too, remember Georgia's defense isn't like everybody. Don't think 2022 Georgia here. Okay,
right.
That's not the Georgia defense we're dealing with. This is a good Georgia defense, but 103rd in opportunity rate, 47th in EPA per rush, 49th in yards per rush allowed, and 93rd in yards after contact. So, like, this isn't the kill 'em all Georgia defense, and it's the same thing on the other side. For their passing defense, it's not like they're out there shutting everybody down. Texas is going to be able to move the ball on them.
Yeah,
it's going to happen. If you ask me the script, I think you see Beck. You open to like 265. I think he's 260 or so right now. I like it. I like that over.
Yeah.
I
think you're right.
You got any of those?
No, totally. Yeah. No, I like that over, and I think you're right. I think Texas. Texas. Like they've been recruiting at an insane level. I mean, their line is as on both sides of the ball is as good as any of these lines in the SEC. So when you have a good line, you're going to be able to move the ball down the field, and you have good running backs. You got good skill position players. Isaiah Bond, I'm hoping he's able to play in this game. If not, I can see Texas struggling a little bit through the air because they need that field stretcher. I can see Silas Bolden honestly playing that role a little bit, but
he had an explosive play finally. He hasn't really been. They haven't used him that much,
right? Yeah, I think some of that is Isaiah Bond playing a similar role to him.
Yeah, but now he gets hurt.
Yeah, we'll see. That's gonna be a fun game for sure. So, okay, let's do wide receivers. We got about 10 minutes left in the show, so let's do wide receivers here, and we'll give it to you. That was a good conversation about Trey Wisner. I love that dude.
Trey Wisner and props. We all love props too, don't we?
Of course.
What's wrong with that? We're gonna talk about right out of the gate. I forget. Did I talk about Dane Key last week?
I think you mentioned him.
I may have. Guys, he's still out here at a 27% ownership rate.
Yeah.
I kind of feel guilty even talking about it. I don't even want to talk about it at all because Barry Brown is fully marginalized.
Yeah.
I mean, did he even catch a pass? Did he catch me? I don't even know if he caught a pass all game. And Dane Key went out and went buck wild because he's obviously Dane Key. And he's gone, I think, over 100 yards for 3 straight games, if I'm not mistaken. I could be, but that's why I'm looking this up. He has clearly shown that he is the number one wide receiver there in Kentucky, given it's Brock Vandagriff, Vanderstiff. But at the same time, he's taking control of the room. Barry Brown is a return man. Past 3 games for Key, he's gotten 10, 12, and 10 targets, right? So he's double-digit targets every game. One of them's against Ole Miss. 7 catches for 145, 8 for 105 and a touch, 8 for 83 and a touch. You got to take him. He's talented. If you watch him, I watched the last game and watched, all his reps. He's toasting people out there. Separation is separation. We tell you he's doing it. Promise, he's out there and he's doing it right now. Past the eye test in spades, he's 27% owned.
11 targets a game. I mean, that's crazy. 8 receptions.
Like now we're in SEC play. The gloves are off. Everything changes, and that's important to remember when you're capping props when you're doing any of this. Conference play, it's big boy time. All right, no more rotating through the lines. You're the best and you play. And with Trey Harris, questionable going into the game, plays, leaves the game. Who picked up that slack in the big outside wideout role? It was Caden Lee.
Yeah.
Sophomore, right? He's 8% owned.
Yeah.
Catches 9 of 13 for $132, and a couple of them were big ones. Like, that was an awesome game if you got to watch. I'm sure we all watched
for sure.
Of that. Yeah. Like, he hadn't done much. He only got 2 targets each of the past 3 games, but he caught 5 of 5 for 83 against Wake, and had 2 carries for 18 yards. So they see something in him. He's out there all the time. He's on the field in these 3 wide receiver sets. When Jordan Watkins was out, he was playing. When Wells was down, he's that guy who's taken over. And with Antoine Wells, his hands, he had an opportunity to make a huge play downfield that could have changed the game. And he got the opportunity to do it. He was in position, it hit him right in the hands, and he dropped it. And
we were talking about that earlier off air. Golly,
we talked about it off air. You can't do it. And he hasn't made the most of his opportunities. Caden Lee's a sophomore. All those other guys we just mentioned, all of them are seniors. All of them are gone. I want to be involved in Lane Kiffin even when this current generation is gone, and it's going to be Caden Lee. So Dynasty, go get Caden Lee. We talked about Trent Walker before. Definitely go get him. I try to tell you, he caught another 9 passes. It's ridiculous how many.
It is funny. We keep coming back to these guys that are 10% owned that we've talked about for 3 weeks in a row.
2% owned Trent Walker still, but I won't. That's why I won't bore you with Trent Spirit Walker. I know we talked about him, but Jonathan Hestera. I mean, he was absolutely hysterical.
Yep.
Against UNLV, 10 catches on 12 targets, 152 and a touch. He didn't do anything against the previous week against Boise, but you saw him the previous 2 weeks, come out after doing nothing. 3 out of 5, 42 and a touch against Utah. 2 of 3, 44 and a touch against Temple. He looks like he's taken over the secondary role to Jalen Royals, and that's a good spot to be because they're chucking the ball just like they did during, the Anderson era. Yep. Still doing it. They got New Mexico and Wyoming and coming up over the next 2 weeks. Guess what happens against those teams? Fireworks, laser shows. Hystera is 1% owned coming off of a nuke like that. If you're in a deep league, give him a look.
Yeah, and Kyrese White got hurt in that game that he went off. So, it's going to be hard to get Utah State information, but if Kyrese White is hurt, and that clearly opened up the floodgates for a Hystera who's already showing signs of going off. So, and shout out, he's from Cedar Park, Texas, right outside of Austin. So, personally like that guy quite a bit.
Love it.
So, love that. Jackson Meeks is a guy for me. We've already talked about him last week.
Oh, yeah. I was in the end zone when he caught that TD against UNLV, baby. He was doing the dance.
Yeah. So he's only 15% owned. And look.
Even after that, I know.
Yep. He's averaging what?
They're still chucking. He's out there all the time.
He's averaging 12 targets, 10 receptions, 115 yards over the last 3 weeks. So, and 27.1 fantasy points per game. So he's got a touchdown each week. So
there's nothing meek about his production is there, Josh?
And nothing. That dude is going off. So love him. Matt Sykes, Rice, 5%. We talked about him a
Man,
little bit before. Yeah. I
the
mean,
Rice is chucking. They're chucking.
yeah.
And they play quick.
Yeah. And he's got, look, 47 targets to the first half of the season, almost that 100 target mark that we really like and look for. 31 receptions, 391 yards. And it's really been the last 3 weeks that he's gone, to the next level. 7 catches, 88 yards, 19.3 fantasy points per game. So, look, heading into AAC play, I mean, he's a guy that you should definitely look at. And then last one I got over here is Darius Lassiter for BYU. Yeah, it's just been interesting. In the last couple of weeks, like they've used him differently. They only used him primarily outside the first 3 or 4 weeks. And then he came back and they've been moving him around both inside and slot. And he's been going off. I mean, the last 2 weeks, he's averaging 11.5 targets, 7 receptions, 103 yards, and 19.8 fantasy points per game. And this last week, he just had like 5 catches for 80 yards. So no touchdowns, but he's a guy, as they get deeper into the season, I think that they're going to be using him more and more as their wide receiver 1 there at BYU. So that's all the receivers I got. You got any, I know tight end is always sparse, but you got any tight end offerings for us, Froton?
Want to remind you, even though he's 17% owned, Trey Green caught a touchdown pass here. Once Mason Taylor goes to the NFL, that's going to be his show in Dynasty.
Yes, he looked good on that catch.
Yes. If you want a Dynasty tight end, take Trey Green, LSU. On the other side, got a pair of 1%ers. Jermaine Terry, Oregon State. Looks like he's taking that TE1 role. Oregon State is scoring points, and he, they have to score. They have to score points. But Jermaine Terry, believe it or not, a senior, a little bit long in the tooth with Velling gone. 3 of 6 for 42 2 weeks ago. 5 of 8 for 94 this week against Nevada. And these, like we're saying about scoring points, 38-21, they beat Purdue. 39-31, they beat Colorado State. 42-37, they lost to Nevada. Delightful. I love 42-37. Great. Right. Please, more of that. And as I think we discussed a little bit last week, potentially, maybe we didn't, Josh. I don't know. I forget these things.
It's a lot of shows we do.
Yeah, it's the Anthony Hankerson show. We don't have Jamius Griffin. Yes. Looks like he's injured for potentially the season, long term. Okay, well, time to throw the ball a little bit more often. Jermaine Terry, late riser, 1% owned. Let's go. Next, another 1%er. And we're going to go back to Maction. I'm trying to find these Mac fringe guys that are still out there that haven't been exposed yet, because we're going to hit Maction, and these guys are going to make a difference. Yep. Max Reese, Eastern Michigan.
Yep.
Last game against Miami, Ohio, down 14-38, 7 of 8 for 50, gets a 3-yard carry. Now, he didn't get any touchdowns, but a few weeks ago against Jacksonville State, 4 of 5, 64, and 2 touchdowns he caught. So that's a pair of 12-plus point weeks in the past 4. Didn't do much against Kent State, but still, they beat Kent State 52-33. He caught 3 passes on 3 targets, but only went for 16 yards. They're scoring points, Eastern Michigan. They're going to be scored upon. Very confident about that. These MAC teams in scripts, if you need a tight end, you're a deep league, you could do a lot worse at throwing Max Reese in there and seeing how it goes. Yeah,
I like that. Yeah, I only got one guy here, Jack Endries from California.
Dude, my guy, Jack Endries.
Yeah.
Do you know Jack Endries? His dad, Robert Endries, personal friend of the show, by the way. Do you know he has retweeted our show links before, Robert Endries, his dad?
No way.
Yes.
Well, here we are. That? We're talking about his son. He needs a retweet.
And we're talking about his son, as we should. Let's go. He was actually loves the college fantasy stuff.
That's amazing. And you know him personally?
Well, he and I DM with each other. I am going to be hitting a Cal game. I might even go this weekend. Cool. But he the reason how he got into it, he read my tight end article where I went through sort of the wide rate corollary to fantasy production, went through a lot of what makes a successful fantasy tight end stuff. And that's how he contacted me off that and was like, oh, I thought it was so interesting. It was off of last year. And then he contacted me in the summer. Was like, are you going to do another one? Like, that was an awesome article. I was like, yes, I will. Did it, sent it to him. And we've been corresponding like, every week. I just hit him up to let him know that his son, like 2 weeks in a row, he's kicked ass. He's been awesome.
Yeah.
Jack.
Yeah. It was fun.
He's a true tight end too.
Yeah. And it was fun to see him do it against Miami when he had that long pass. It was, wide open. But then to come back this week, 3 catches, I think 78 yards in that game. But then to come back this week with 8 catches and 100 and whatever, 19, whatever that was. I mean, look, I don't know. I think they might have found some of the, you got tight ends that can stretch the field like that. Shout out to Jack. I mean, those guys are worth taking shots on. And Mendoza, I mean, he's limited overall as a passer as far as his NFL ability, but to me, he's a good college quarterback. I think he pairs well there. I mean, the kid's averaging 21.4 fantasy points per game. Injuries the last couple of weeks. So
awesome, my man. So proud of him.
Worth a shot. Shout out also Taylor Thompson, JMU. We talked about him before. 2 catches, 58 yards this last week. He's only 14% owned. So look, he could go off on any week when you got guys averaging 29 yards a catch on any given week. Then those guys are definitely a tight end, gonna give you some value. So
I'll toss.
That's it. Go ahead.
Anthony Lanphier. Memphis, before the season, he was a pretty hot guy because Memphis's offense was supposed to be incredible. They've been a little more defense oriented, but he's only 9% owned, and he had a great week last week. There's no reason why he couldn't keep going at 9%. Give it a look. Yeah,
I love that. Hey, we got a couple questions here in the chat that I think are worth us getting to here. The first one, we're going to be breaking some unfortunate news here, but Bacon Fueled is asking, Froton, are you coming to Austin this week?
I will not be coming to Austin this week, Bacon Fueled. I'm sorry, buddy. I was looking forward to it, but plans have changed, unfortunately.
Yes. So I figured we would make that announcement real quick. Unfortunately, there won't be a meeting of the minds in Austin. So that's a sad deal. All right. Little theory question here, and we'll end with this. But you wake up, the day is July 13th, 2025. You're named head coach of the newly FBS promoted Coast Guard Life Jackets. Both Blake Horvath and Bryson Daly want to transfer to be your QB. Who are you taking, Proton?
Oh, man, that's a tough one.
Isn't it? That's such a great question. It's such a great question for a CFF podcast.
I'm going to go with Bryson Daly. I like Army. I can't help it, dude. That team has been a wagon. I'm invested in Noah Short. I'm invested in Yeezy, Kanye Udo. So I gotta stick with the Army.
Yeah. I mean, he's looked so good. Look, I can't disagree with that. But man, Blake Horvath has been unbelievable.
Yes, he has. He has been unbelievable. But hey, another great show, buddy.
Yeah, that was fun, man. Hey, again, like we say every week, like we enjoy your support. Please like, subscribe.
Toss a like, subscribe, as they say, please. Thank you.
Yes, a little rate and review would be helpful too. We have our own podcast feed, so you can find us there as well on CFF All Access on all your major platforms. So we appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys soon. Until next time, do small things with great love. What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.